we also have a third panelist. If I may please welcome on stage Mr. Ramkishore Ayyagari from TCS. Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I know this is a really difficult session post-lunch, but delighted that so many of you have actually taken the trouble to come back into the room after a delicious lunch. So, if there's one transformation that is reshaping our factories and mission-critical manufacturing processes, it is the convergence of IT, OT, and IoT. What used to be siloed worlds are now coming together to create operations that are autonomous, predictive, and deeply intelligent. In fact, nasscom's recent research shows that the impact of this convergence is real. Significant increase in asset utilization, more resilient supply chains, and smarter, sustainable operations. But the journey is far from being simple. Legacy environments, integration complexities, governance challenges, and critical skill gaps hinder full-scale adoption. Which is why this discussion today is particularly relevant. Today we explore the practical realities. Where does the real value lie? The on-ground challenges, and what it takes to make this a successful endeavor. Anita, if I may start with you, what patterns are you seeing emerge in the way enterprises are designing their IT, OT, IoT strategies? And what are some of the use cases that you're seeing gain traction? And how is AI sort of amplifying the impact?
Sure, thanks, Kate. So I'll talk about maybe 2-3 patterns that we're seeing recently, especially in the manufacturing, energy, mobility space. So a few years back, we started talking about IoT being all about connectivity. So we said one asset can talk to another, we'll sensorize everything, really just make sure that a lot of data is really collected. But today what we're seeing is that a lot of customers are looking beyond just connectivity. It's all about contextualization. So you have a lot of data, most of it was lying unused all this time, then how can you really make sense of it? It's all about deriving intelligence from that data. So when I say intelligence, contextualization really means that if there's something wrong in a particular line, there's a machine line, there's something wrong with it, will you be able to ask, what is wrong with line 4? Can you actually fix it, right? So getting suggestions on how the line can be fixed. First of all, diagnosing what is wrong with the line. That is the extent to which now that AI has been added into the mix, that's the extent to which we're seeing things change, even on the shop floor. So the second one that I want to talk about is really about moving from just point solutions and pilots to beyond that, right? So when you're looking at 5 years back, 10 years back, everything started with a pilot. So everybody said, we'll do IoT pilots. At a particular time, we were looking at IoT pilots, in fact, as a sort of purgatory, right? No projects really crossed that. And then we started talking about really scaling IoT, because scaling IoT is a very different ballgame altogether. Because when you're starting off with IoT, it is easier. We've experienced this with a lot of our customer projects as well. So you initially start off and say that, we'll build a small project, do it as a pilot. But then what really happens after that? ROI is very, very difficult to define in an IoT project. And customers keep asking you, how do you really define that ROI, right? So it's a challenge that has been there for quite some time now. So really moving beyond pilots into looking at what scale really means in today's world. That is the second one, I would say. The third one, Ketaki, is that sustainability is really gaining a lot of importance. I think that's a topic that's very close to us. Sustainability is being looked at in multiple ways right now. So it's not just about shop floor, it's beyond that as well. How can you really make your entire operations sustainable, right? That's really the cornerstone of Industry 5.0 as well. And I think AI is really playing into all of this beyond just IT, OT, just bringing all of this together. I think AI is that binding glue to it. I think without that, we really can't talk about IoT as such anymore.
Thank you, Anita. Ramkishore, if I can just build on what Anita mentioned, In your experience, what do you see as the current maturity level of enterprises as they are adopting the IT-OT integration? And how are they embedding IT-OT integration into their strategies?
Thank you. OT has always been closeted, meaning they don't want to open up for various reasons. The way of working has always been different. But then the pressures of the technology and the businesses have made them open up. The data, they want the data now. The data from the manufacturing or the OT side, operations technology side, is needed by the business so that they can make better decisions. And security has become a very major challenge now. So these are the things which make a problem now. Now the problem is, in the beginning when I started my career in 1995, so then it was very closed. The OT part of it was very closed. And then IT was not at all there. IT would be completely away. And we used to make reports. There used to be something called EDP was there. Now it's all connected. And everybody is asking for that. So the OT is under tremendous pressure to send the data out and continue to keep their operations. Okay. So we see this trend going beyond the Indian industry is also catching up. Beyond small, there used to be small pockets of industries which used to be very, very cognizant about how the industry is shaping up and how the technology is coming up. Now it's all over. Either you catch up or you are left behind. So it's there now. It's moving out. It's not that it is now catching up, it's already there.
Thank you for that. Anitha, if I can come back to you, given your experience, can you walk us through what does a successful IT, OT, IoT convergence execution look like? And also building on what you alluded to earlier, can you maybe elaborate a little on Industry 5.0 and sustainability and how enterprises should start thinking about this?
Sure. So looking at really building on how IT-OT today should be like. So as I said, mostly what we're looking at today is not just point solutions. So what that means is you need to design for scale. When you start designing for scale, your solution will not just be a point solution, it will extend beyond that from one factory to multiple sites, to multiple business units, to multiple geos as well. So can your solution really scale? That's the first thing that you need to look at. So that's the one thing that a lot of customers are starting to think about today. So really in terms of how this should scale, can we start designing for that scale today? That's one thing. The second thing that I would also look at is maybe giving you one example, right? So since I was talking about sustainability as well, let me take that as an example. So one of the things that we are doing at Hitachi today is to build an ESG data collection platform. So this product that we call Rita One, it is an ESG data collection tool. But what it also does is it uses AI to really power a lot of the sustainability related decision making in the process as well. So by collecting all of this data, what factories can really do is to use that to improve, transform their operations. So that level of decision making is possible by a simple act of being able to collect ESG data at the right places. We're also able to report, obviously. So reporting is another big challenge that people are facing today because in a large company which has more than 100 entities, Excel is what is mostly used today for a lot of the ESG data collection. It's a nightmare every single year when that data has to be presented and ESG reports have to be created. But Rita One takes all of that guessing out because we're able to collect data from all of these different entities across thousands of sites and be able to even generate a sustainability report for our customers. So that's the extent to which things are changing now, and I think sustainability is, being one of the important things, in Industry 5.0 as well. There's a lot of buzz around it. A lot of customers are trying to figure out what really they can do in terms of sustainability.
Thanks, Anita. If we could deep dive on a particular dimension which is often sort of overlooked and very underappreciated, cybersecurity. In the context of this convergence, it becomes especially important. How should enterprises be managing their cybersecurity risks, and how should service providers help enable this resilience?
Thank you, Ketaki. Very well brought out. Very I would say cybersecurity is pushed down, always looked down upon, because they provide less flexibility. They bring in the flexibility of how the organization runs is brought down. That's what the things are. So I would say the CISOs and the chief information security officers are no less than any diplomats. They have to be always walking on a tightrope. Their funding is cut each time, and nothing to show from their side, right? They don't hit the top line, they don't hit the bottom line. But they have a huge responsibility to take care. They have to continue to keep the organization extremely resilient against outside attacks, anything for that matter. That becomes a very difficult job for them. So that's one part. And there is no, security is not a destination. Most people think that, okay, today I have done something, I'm done. It is a journey, it is a continuous journey. And the changing landscape of how the technology is increasing, and by way of how the organizations have been forced to embrace these things, to increase their bottom line, to better the bottom line, and to increase their top line also. Because the predictive maintenance is there. How do you bring about that? To have sensorization, bring it to the top, see how things are working on. Instead of a breakdown maintenance or just prescriptive maintenance, you go into predictive maintenance. So that way it's increasing. Your bottom line is better, your plant availability is better. But at the same time, your data is going out. How do you manage that? So that puts a huge amount of stress on the vulnerabilities and how the management of vulnerabilities are happening in a particular organization. And the entire security operations are very much under pressure. So this has to be understood by the organizations, and continuous assessment of where they are. And I would say, when you are trying to mitigate these risks or vulnerabilities, you cannot try to boil the entire ocean. You take one step at a time, looking at what criticalities are there, which is the highest criticality, and take it forward. So these are the trends, I would say, which are most important, how the organization should think.
Thank you. I think, we've covered strategy, use cases, and execution challenges. But before we wrap up, just a quick closing reflections from both of you. What would be your top 2 imperatives for enterprises looking to get onto this IT-OT journey in order to make it successful? Maybe this time we could start with you, Ram.
For me, ROI. ROI is very important. Continue to look to see if your use case or what you are going to aim at is giving you the right benefits in all types. Because many times, I'll tell you of an example what happened. One of the CEOs of a big company, I would not like to name the company, said, we were in discussion, Eastside discussion, suddenly said, I want to put some things in the cloud. Okay, but why? I know, that's a buzzword, cloud. I want to be in the cloud. Fine, but did you talk to your CISO? No, I'm pushing him. Putting things in cloud is one thing, but getting it back is very, very expensive, the data part of it. And then the security. How will you handle that? It's a huge nightmare over there. And the latency, if it is going to be there. He wanted to put some OT applications also into that. So those sort of small things, you got to see if the ROI is there, if it is real, especially when you make it in a POV, when you make it as a POC, right? Deploy it in a small scale and see that. That might seem relevant. But when you put it to scale, as Anitha said earlier, is it going to give me the proper ROI or not? The second part of it is, are we continuing to be relevant in this organization, in the current market, with the current technology that we have? So you have to keep an eye out in the market for the new technologies that are coming in, how you can embrace them in a very proper manner without endangering your security and your current, how you are local standing in the market. Otherwise, suddenly, some things might change, which might put you out of the market. Now, earlier it used to be small, incrementally, the innovations used to happen. Now it's all disruption everywhere. Sometimes some things you hear from somewhere, the other side is, you might think there's something not happening over the other side, it comes from there. Imagine, we are now looking into electrical vehicles. Tomorrow somebody says, I come up with some cheap, say, air could be one of them. Is it a fuel already there? food for thought, right? Tomorrow, if somebody comes up and says, I've come up with a machine which runs on pure air and then gives you pure water as a output. Imagine what will happen to the whole world order. Just food for thought. Similarly, many things are.
Anita?
So the two, according to me, so first one is to obviously build a unified data and architecture layer. I think the most important thing is to look at interoperability, common data models, and scalable architectures. Right? Build that data fabric, build the digital twins today, and that's going to scale for tomorrow. Right? The second one is really about people. I think people are at the center of all of this in any factory, in any shop floor. Unless you really get change management into the picture, really bring people on board with all that is happening with IT-OT and AI and everything. If your people are not on board, none of these initiatives will really work. I think that's something that Industry 4.0 failed to capture, and that's the reason why the human collaboration with machines and really bringing the human's needs into this is the cornerstone, again, another cornerstone of Industry 5.0. So I think the human angle to this is very important, and without that, none of this will really work. So those would be my top.
And I think very interesting that in this era of AI and really advanced technologies, it's at the end of the day a human issue. Really, I think, as this discussion reinforces, IT, OT, IoT convergence is no longer a choice. It's really the backbone of enterprise transformation. And really, it's strategy, collaboration, and bold reimagination of processes that will drive how far and how fast enterprises adopt this change. On behalf of NASSCOM, I'd like to thank our two panelists for candidly sharing their experience and expertise. And to all of you, thank you for being part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our panelists. Requesting Ms. Ketaki to please hand over a small token of appreciation to our panelists. Thank you. Can we keep the round of applause going, please? Thank you, moderator. Thank you, panelists.